Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Fireside Chat with myself, and here I'm joined by Chloe, all the way from the Bay Area. So, without further ado, let me introduce our special guest, Chloe Shih. So, Chloe comes all the way from the Bay Area and is currently working as a product manager at TikTok. She's worked with really big companies such as Boeing, Google, and Facebook, and has done analytics, operations, business development, and partnerships before her current role in product. Hey, Chloe, could you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, and thank you so much for introducing me, Tim. Hi, everyone. My name's Chloe. Hope you can hear me okay. If not, just shout out in the chat. But my name's Chloe, and I am born and raised in LA County, went to school in New York City, lived in like South Carolina for a bit, and have been working in the Bay Area for the entirety of my career. And then my background's really in all kinds of areas. I currently am the product lead for bullying and harassment and life safety here at TikTok. And I previously worked on Facebook groups and events. And then I worked at a startup in the live streaming space, and then worked at Google on analytics, and have been consulting with several startups in the creator industry and in online communities. So that's kind of my thing. And outside of that, I really enjoy doing creative stuff like videos and podcasts, and then singing and arts. Yeah.
That is awesome. So what made you want to study engineering, and how's it been like in the tech industry?
Um, so actually, I was a pre-med major, and I did like everything in the study or in the program, but I really didn't like it. And I just felt that I didn't enjoy being with the pre-med students around me. Like when I looked at them, I was like, I don't want to be friends with you. And I didn't want to be like them either.
Mhm.
So then I also looked at my engineering classmates, and I was like, oh wow, I really like this cohort of people, and I wanted to go in that direction. Yeah, and I ended up studying specifically industrial engineering and operations research, which is really like very much like applied math. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think most of the participants here today they most of them have an engineering background. I'm not sure if any of them has a pre-med background, so maybe
I don't remember anything from my pre-med days, but I suffered through it all.
oh dear. All right, but at least now you're here in tech, and hopefully you're having a great time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe could you tell our audience how you managed to get your first tech job out of college?
It was really hard. I'm going to say that it is not easy getting the first job out of college. I mean, it's not even easy getting internships, or at least when I was going to school, it was really competitive. And I didn't study CS. So I felt like I was not the ideal candidate for a lot of non technical jobs because I didn't go into software engineering. And I honestly did the spray and pray method. I just like submitted as many resumes as possible. I think even for like my internships, I remember submitting like 150 plus internship applications just to land my one. And then, yeah, I think senior year was like a super sad year. Everyone was interviewing like crazy or getting rejected or like trying to get referrals. Like it was a frenzy. And then I eventually got I got someone, I applied to Google, and I applied to like every single role I found. And then a recruiter finally responded to one of them. And then I went through the interview loops, and I thankfully passed. But I remember not passing a lot of my previous interviews at the time. And I was like very depressed. It was a hard time of life. Yeah.
Oh man, I mean that sounds pretty rough, but they do say that the first internship or the first job is the hardest to get. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I totally agree. It's really hard. You can't stand out without experience. You really can't unless you know the person, they know you, and they're willing to take a bet on you, or they just don't want to recruit. If there's any company that has any recruiting resources, they will never take anyone with no experience.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. So hopefully our participants don't feel so demoralized that it's getting pretty hard to get a job in tech right now. Yeah, so right now you work as a product manager at TikTok. So when do you
Yeah.
realize you wanted to work as a product manager, and how do you break into product?
Yeah, this is an interesting one. I think I've always heard of product management throughout college, but I never really knew what it was. And then when I switched over to Caffeine, which is like one of the startups that I worked at, I was working like I did all kinds of things at the startup. I started with like QA and and marketing and analytics and then program management. And then I went into biz dev. So I did a lot of the partnerships. I would fly down to LA like every other week and meet with agencies, production companies, talent creators, a lot of like streamers, a lot of people in gaming. So all the big gaming celebrities today, like if anyone's into them, like Valkyrae and Pokimane and Lily Pichu, like that group, I've worked with them in the past. So then when we were building a live streaming platform and I would get all the feedback from working with creators directly, and then I would funnel them over to my engineering teams and my design teams to be like, our creators really need this feature. Can you guys prioritize this? And so at that time, I felt like I was doing a really great job with partnerships, but no matter how hard I I pushed for partnerships, I felt that I was always bottlenecked by the product. And I felt that if we had more differentiated product features, it would make our users happier and they would stick longer and they would be able to create better, I don't know, art or streams or videos or shows. So at that point, I was like very early on in my career, I really wanted to go into product. And it took me quite some time to really get used to like all the different skill sets needed. But yeah, it took me a couple of years to transition.
Yeah. Then what are the different skills that you think are required for a good product manager?
There are so many. I think it's difficult to say which skills are the best because it really depends on your industry that you pick. Like if you're in fintech or ed tech or music tech or consumer tech or B2B platforms, your skill set is extraordinarily different. Like your product sense, your ability to figure out where user feedback is are coming from. But I think across the board, PMs really have to be extremely diligent in understanding how to prioritize certain features. Like as a PM, everyone in the company would be like, we should do this, we should do this. But then you have to know like what is the goal? What is the mission of the company? What is the goal that you own in your product space? And then how do you stack rank everything and be able to communicate that within the team and then also outside of the team so people don't get too upset. So playing that diplomatic role is really crucial. You have to tell like people no because or yes because and push back to protect your engineering team since they always get overloaded with feature requests. So being able to be a super strong communicator and have like a really strong framework to approach certain problems because like there's not really one right way to do anything, but as long as you have a proper way of doing something and then you can articulate that clearly, then you'll have people who can get behind your back on like when you have a huge decision. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Then this is probably something that can be applied into our participants' projects, right, at the hackathon,
Yeah.
since it's something that they have only 24 hours to develop. So
Yeah.
yeah, you mentioned before that it was pretty hard for you to break into the tech industry without a computer science degree. So do
Yeah.
you have any advice for people who wanna go into tech if they don't have like an engineering background or a computer science background?
Yeah, I think it depends on what they want to do because there's so many different roles in tech. You can be like a lawyer in tech, and legal space within tech is very interesting because you have all these like data privacy laws and copyright issues and like there's a lot of like things around transactions and e-commerce and finance. So I think that there's really so many different facets. I think that for people who want to break into the tech industry who don't know what they want that but they don't have like a STEM background. um I think it's important to honestly figure out like the top 3 areas that they're interested in first. It's kind of like useless to try out everything because nobody has enough time in their career to do that. And there's then guarantee like cutting down that list to your top 1 to 3 would be so much easier than like going for any single position. I think how to understand that is is really to come to like panels like this or reach out to alumni who have graduated and are working in the tech industry, and they can break down their view of tech for you. And then whatever path resonates with you, you should try to see what kind of applicants do they take, like what kind of people, in LinkedIn who are, I don't know, a program manager or a data scientist, what certificates do they have, or what past experiences or projects or internships that they have, and then try to like emulate or follow that path, because if it worked for them, it could work for you too. So I think that's important, the finding process, like picking your top choices and then finding people who are in those paths and then trying to emulate them, try to understand what got them through the door. Yeah. And then lastly, if you just want to stand out in any shape or form, but are having trouble with getting something on your resume, um, there's just so many. I feel like, I don't know about schools over there, but I feel like there's so many resources at school these days where you can enter a hackathon like this, or there's like online competitions. Like if you're in data science, you can go on Kaggle and then just enter yourself into a competition, um, and try to win a prize. There's also a lot of pitch competitions. So if anyone doesn't have like technical backgrounds, but they're a visionary and they love taking that, you can always go to these pitch competitions, and they're really like consulting case competitions. They're like the same thing, but more with a tech solution. And then winning, or not necessarily winning, but like coming out with some sort of idea or project from that, and then trying to build like an MVP, just like a V1. Maybe it is a crappy website, or maybe it's just some sort of product that you ship somewhere on the internet, would make a huge difference on your resume.
All right, that's wonderful to hear. Hopefully, uh, hopefully we can take that into consideration and then use that for our job search in the future. I'm pretty sure a lot of students here are looking to get an internship right now. If I'm not wrong, it is internship season. So yeah, hopefully this helps.
Yeah. Good luck, everyone.
Yeah, so as this is a mental health hackathon, I do want to ask you a few mental health questions. So mental health has been a global issue that was thrown into spotlight when the pandemic hit. So compared to Western countries like over there in the US, the stigma for mental health is worse in Asia, and people are still less open to seeking support. I'm curious about what your perspective on mental health is.
I think it's tough, especially with the cultural background that you have provided. That context is hard to overcome. Even here, as Asian Americans, it's a huge stigma to pursue mental health services. And I don't think it really was normalized for me until I probably graduated and I was going through my own like panic attacks in my career. I think just too many crazy things happen in my adult life, like personal things happen, family things happen, your job, like you hate your job, or you go through a heartbreak and it's not fun. And in those times, I think I always like didn't address it in college. As a student, I was like, I'm gonna just tough it out. It's like 4 years, whatever. And then I think as an adult, I didn't build the muscles to practice how to take care of my mental state and emotional state. I think I attacked it by brute force, and it was only my adult years that I faced the consequences of that inability. So then I started seeking therapy, but therapy is really hard to get. It's really expensive, and therapy is the psychology realm is like a very archaic, like traditional industry. So it takes like weeks, if not months, to get something on scheduled, or you have to find someone that fits your style, that you feel comfortable being vulnerable with. You got to pay if it's out of pocket. It could be like anywhere from $100 to $300 per hour. And that's a lot if you need to see someone every single week. But I think that over time I have been able to just like normalize it. I think I used to say, oh, I used to be really scared of like telling people about it. And then I started sharing with my friends. And then I would just like tell my manager, I have therapy every Tuesday afternoon. I just have to take this time off, which is fine. And now I think that it's not really a big deal within work, like to say, oh, I'm just going to therapy. And if you're like a little sensitive about that, because some people could be really traditional, you can just say you're going to the doctors. And I think here we at least amongst my group of friends and the professionals that I work with, therapy is really treated as like a way for you. It's like going to the gym, I guess. You go to the gym every day, you should also take care of your mental emotional health.
That's
Because
awesome.
yeah, we try to like say, oh yeah, good for you, of course, you should definitely do that. So my thoughts are, it's if this generation really is open to therapy and mental emotional support, then I think embracing that. And when there is tension, when someone like belittles you for speaking out about it, I think it's really worth snapping back and be like, hey man, that was not cool. Like where do you get that idea from? I actually had like a I wouldn't say a coworker, but someone I used to work with call that out when I like posted on my IG story once. And he was like, you look really weak when you say that you go to therapy on Tuesdays and you don't seem professional and I wouldn't post it on your IG stories. And I was like, excuse you, that's really archaic way of thinking and it has nothing to do with you. And I think it says more about you than it does about me. And I think like if you guys are a fan of, I don't know, Keanu Reeves from The Matrix or John Wick, it was his birthday yesterday. He says like he just doesn't want to live in a world where kindness is seen as weak, and therapy is a form of being kind to yourself. Yeah, that's how I think about it.
That is awesome. It's great that people are getting more open about it over here as well. I think compared to a couple of years ago when I was in the equivalent of, I think, middle school, people were talking about counselors like, oh, you're like a trouble kid. You should see the counselor. Now, I think the teachers are really more open about it in school, at least.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, um, if you feel trouble, if you don't feel so good, or you maybe even if you just want to chat with someone about what's on your mind, you can go see the counselor. I think that's been great over here, but the issue that we're facing now is that a lot of people have become open and are seeking support from like the therapists and school counselors, but they haven't adjusted to handle that demand yet. So something that we need to work on here.
Oh yeah, that's a tough problem to solve for sure. But I'm glad that people are more open about it. That's a really good step forward.
Yeah, I mean, it's great to see as well. You mentioned that, yeah, I do agree with you that sometimes, especially for maybe the younger students, that therapy might be a little bit more expensive for them to afford. So maybe you could give me, you could tell them a few things you do that you to help you take care of your mental health.
I mean, I don't know what kind of healthcare systems exist in Singapore. I have no idea. But for students, there's usually like a sliding scale that certain providers will like kind of give discounts to. So I think that is really good. Or if you're under your parents' insurance, then things are more covered, and then you just have to pay the copay, which is like usually $20 a session, US dollars a session. Yeah. But for personal, um, I think it's really important to have a support network. Like, I think I've had a friend who really struggled with talking about his emotions because he was always afraid to be vulnerable around his like guy friends. Like with him is just him and his boys, they just talk about games and like they talk about I don't know, they talk about anything on the news or some interesting facts, but they don't really talk about the times where they feel unsure, they feel scared, they feel weak, they're maybe pursuing a romantic interest and they don't want to get shot down, and they like bottle all of that when they're together. And that's honestly extraordinarily unhealthy, because when the time does come when that person needs to express a deeper, more complicated emotion that is not completely well thought out, that muscle is not there, it's absent, and it's a fear, and that becomes a pattern of like, wow, this really scary thing is there, I'm just not gonna say it. And we call that we call that emotionally constipated. And it happens a lot because at least in Silicon Valley, you have really smart people who it gets you pretty far if you like look put together, if you look like you know what you're doing, if you know what you're saying all the time. Um, and but that's not healthy, and that's not the case, and that's not reality. So I think a couple of things that I do is I make sure I'm honest with myself, number one, whether I need to journal that down, whether I need to have a gratitude journal, whether I need to like tell myself, hey, these toxic things are happening and I'm really depressed and I'm sad about it, and that's okay. And then step two is like, can I, if I'm having trouble structuring that in my head, maybe if I just talk to a trusted friend, it'll become clear to me, and then they can echo back and be a sounding board. And then maybe once I hear it from someone else's mouth, it'll be like, it'll click in my head to be like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening. Or I can finally put a name on it. I think it makes like such a big difference when you're feeling this unease inside, and then someone else helps you think through it and you like place a name on it. That's the first step of awareness. And then the next is finally figuring out how to tackle it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Those are some pretty good tips. Yeah, I mean, over here, I think you're able to give quite a bit of contrast in how I think people over there, the difference in cultures, are able to deal with stuff like mental health. Personally, I was pretty enlightened because over the past 1 year, I made quite a few friends from the US, and the way they talk, the way they tell me about how they're handling their mental health, like what you said, going to a therapy is like, oh yeah, I got a therapy session on like Wednesday next week. Is they're just so chill about it, and it's kind of surprising at first, but when you think about it, you're like, yeah, why should it be such a negative? Why should there be such a negative air around it? So yeah, hopefully our attendees and those watching this fireside chat will be able to feel the same way and be like, oh, it's actually not such a, it's not that it's not a big deal. Like you should take care of your health, but it's not such a something you should be afraid of.
Yeah. I just want to add to that. I think it's always best to go seek therapy when you're actually feeling really healthy. Because it's not easy getting a therapist, and it's not easy finding a match, and it's not easy building that trust to someone. So then when the time comes when like all of your pillars of life are cramped, they're tumbling down and you have nothing else to support you, and you're expected to find a therapist, trust a therapist, and relive that trauma with someone you have absolutely no idea who they are and why you should trust them. When all that happens, it's really overwhelming. And I think, yeah, it's just better to have that ready beforehand. Mm.
Mm. Oh, I see. So that's sort of what you meant by when you said building sort of a trust support system kind of thing with.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's not like, it's not like a medical doctor where you just show up and they just diagnose you and everything's fine. Like you have to like your therapist. It's like a dating process. You might not like your first three therapists. It takes like at least one introductory session. They have to like you back too before they accept you as a client. So it doesn't just happen. It could take a couple of months for you to find someone proper for you.
Yeah, especially since you sort of need someone to be there if you have something like maybe anxiety attacks. You can't wait a few months to before you see
Yeah.
someone.
Yeah, you need someone that night. Oh, on another note, I think there's just a lot of different coaching and therapy apps that I think I tried using before, where you can just like text someone and you can have a texting session to support you. And then oftentimes they're separated into two cohorts. One is like the coaches who are not exactly certified and licensed, and the next is the therapist who you'd have to go through your insurance for. So if you don't have insurance, then you can have access to the coaches, and I think that should be offered and a lot of therapy based apps. Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe whoever's interested or if you ever thought about it before, you can go check that out.
Yeah.
So I think I have just one last question. So what advice do you have for someone who wants to work in the tech industry but wants to prioritize their mental health as well? Because you mentioned before that I think while working in the tech industry, you've taken a you have a lot of things on your hands at one time, and it can get quite a bit overwhelming.
Um, yeah, I think that it's knowing where your boundaries are. I in tech, some companies are really chill and some companies are just not. And sometimes in your career, you want to know you have to be very honest with yourself what you're trying to get out of that step. So if you're trying to grind and like learn all these skills, or you're trying to start a startup, or you're trying to just get integrated with the social sphere and hang out and go explore or meet people, then picking the environment of work that allows you to blossom in the way that you want to in the next like 1 to 3 years is really, really important. I think at my company, it's not known to be an easy company to work at. So I had like a friend reach out because she got an offer, and I was like, if you want to grind and if you want to just get a high salary grind, then I think you're going to come here, which is chill. What's your goal for the next year or so? She was like, oh, I want to have a baby. And I was like, okay, then I think the answer is very clear. You should not come. Yeah. So it's actually really important. And I think a lot of people say, oh, make sure you mesh well with the culture, but you never really know what the culture is when you're interviewing. Like go on teamblind.com, I think, and ask people who work at that company or worked on that team, do reference checks. Because if you ultimately don't like your team members or your manager, you will quit. Like there's just so many options. After you get your first job, there's really so many options for you that you do not need to put up with horrible managers and a horrible team environment. If it's toxic, if they try to overwork you, if they don't respect your personal boundaries, that's really not okay. I think we're in a generation of work where we can be picky about it. So I would say exercise that right. And then for people who do join the tech industry and weren't so lucky to have fallen on super chill teams or super accepting, forgiving, positive, encouraging teams, which is more likely the case than not, unfortunately, it's okay to leave. Yeah, it's not worth the mental health. It's okay to take a pay cut for a less well-known brand and just have your happiness back, because you'll see your manager way more than you see your partner. If you have a partner during your 20s, you see them every day for 40 to 80 hours depending on how much you got to work, and they will they will influence your headspace more than you could ever know. Yeah, I think that I was always so loyal to my team and company, and I never like let go until it was too late, until like I was already beyond my limits. And that was not a good way to live. And that would like bleed into my social life, my personal life, my romantic life. So tech has evolved, and anyone who wants to live a healthier life should, and we can be picky. Yeah. And like if the company sucks, then leave a horrible Glassdoor review, leave a horrible blind review, warn other people, and they should learn their lesson, honestly.
Yeah, I did. I think you mentioned some of these stories on your YouTube videos or your podcast.
Oh, yeah. It's hard. It's honestly really difficult. Yeah, it looks like all fun and dandy on the outside. And then when you look at LinkedIn, people's LinkedIns, you're like, wow, they work at Google. So cool. But it's not. It's like everyone does the same type of thing, or everyone's at similar tier companies. And those who really win are the ones who are happy with their day to day.
For sure. I think I think at some point you just start to think about why you're doing what you do, right? Yeah.
Yeah, or like you have to know what your goals are. Like some people are totally okay with grinding because they want to buy a house. So they need to save up for those 2 to 3 years, get to the equity marks, and then purchase that house and then leave for a more chill company. Or especially for the younger people, like some of us um, just want to grind because we know that in our 30s, we can no longer grind. Our body just can't handle it. Like we're just going to try to chill as much as possible. And then some people are just trying to learn, or they know how to set their boundaries really well with personal and professional. So they do their thing, they clock in and out, and they don't like, they're not overachievers. They're just very, very average workers, and they're fine with it. They draw those lines clearly and it works for them. Yeah.
Yeah, I think those are really good points that they can probably take note for the rest of their lives, to be honest.
Yes.
Yeah, so I think that's all the questions I have for now. Maybe we'll just take 5 to 10 minutes to see if anyone has any other questions. You can feel free to drop that in the Q&As function in the Discord webinar. Yeah. While we wait for those questions, you mentioned about people buying a house, right? So if I'm not wrong, it's pretty expensive to get a house in the Bay Area.
Yeah, it's crazy expensive. It's like probably like $1.2 million for a 2 bedroom, 2 bath, probably.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
And it's maybe it depends on how nice the complex is, but anywhere from like 700 to 1,000 square feet. Maybe, yeah, something like that. Maybe 1,000 square feet makes more sense for a 2 bed, 2 bath. Yeah. So it's pretty expensive. A lot of people are trying to move out of the Bay to like East Bay, North Bay, or outside of the state because California has insane income state tax. There's like Seattle that doesn't have any, and then there's Vegas in Nevada where uh, there's none as well. So yeah, people are just moving all out.
Yeah, I think uh, from an outsider's point of view, it's like, oh, it's the Bay Area, it's all the tech and things happening, and you go there and earn big bucks. But probably people don't understand how expensive everything is there.
It really is. It's I don't think I saved that much in my beginning of my career because like rent was just so expensive, and you have to put like money into retirement and then put stuff in your savings and then invest, and it was just like it was just way too much for me. So I didn't have too much savings going into my adult life from, I don't know, my university life, but like I didn't really have places where I can earn that much money in college either. So I think it's important to have some sort of base net for you to enter your adult life, because also you got to buy stuff for your apartment, like furniture is really expensive, and then you got to buy like work clothes too because you can no longer wear all the clothes that you had in college. So there's a lot of expenses that you rack up. Mm.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I didn't think about the clothes part for sure. Yeah, probably uh things that we don't think about before it suddenly hits us in the face.
Yeah. And usually in your first year, I think a lot of people, it's okay. First of all, it's really hard to make friends as an adult. So a lot of people try to be as social as possible the first year that they move, because if they don't and you miss that window of opportunity where everyone's trying to socialize, like no one's going to socialize later. They're just not incentivized to do so. So the first year might be like going to Tahoe or going on a trip to New York with a bunch of friends, or like renting out an Airbnb nearby in Santa Cruz. So then those are really expensive. Yeah. So I got to save up for the social life as well.
Yeah, all right. That so everyone remember to save up after college. Don't just spend everything. I've had my that feeling when I get my first paycheck and I'm just like, oh my goodness, I'm gonna just use all this to get stuff I finally can afford.
I know it feels really good to get your first paycheck. But I think that I don't know what year everyone is in, but then I think one of the biggest lessons I definitely learned in my career on the financial side is like learning how to invest in things properly, like how much exactly should go into retirement and how much I should put in the stock market, and then how to set a budget, and then how much I should be spending or have capacity to spend on like rent and fun things and future investments like savings. So understanding all of that was something that was never in our education system. I don't know if it's in yours, but it's really, really difficult. Like I'm gonna say, the ones who do invest early are the ones who can retire early.
Yeah, they don't teach us that Not that I know of. I don't remember them teaching that in the education system here as well. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah. I
it's
think it really should be, it's honestly so critical. And it was like a big part of my well being too. Not that money makes you happy, but I think, I don't know if this is true with the population in Singapore, but I think that amongst my female friends, we were just never as financially savvy, or we never really talked about our financial health. We just like thought, oh, we shouldn't, get takeout too often, save some money. But in the grand scheme of things, saving that like that $10, that $20 isn't that impactful. And understanding the big picture of where like the big money is saved is a type of literacy that I think me and my girlfriends never really picked up on. And also because of that, we didn't really know how to value our salaries or our offers. So most of my girlfriends and I think our salaries were just so much lower than our male counterparts. And that was like the saddest realization that I had in my career. Like just finding out the figure of what my male colleagues were making was just so jaw-droppingly different that I realized I need to fight for my financial state and know how to value myself, understand what the market value is for someone like me, be able to hedge different opportunities against each other and be able to walk away even if it's like somewhat of a decent offer, because no one can determine your value except for yourself. And I just felt like my girlfriends and I never talked about it openly. So I think after I realized that, it became one of my biggest goals to make sure I have that, so that I can have more freedom to do the things that I want to do, like be able to afford cameras or a PC or like a nice setup, and feel happy about my day to day, and also not feel sad paying rent because it's very
yeah.
expensive. But I think getting to that like baseline of financial health was really important to my mental emotional state.
Mm. Then if that's the case, do you have any like maybe advice on how maybe the ladies over here or out there can sort of take care of their financial health?
I guess it's for anyone who is afraid of that topic. I think I was afraid to join stock market conversations. I was afraid to understand what a Roth IRA was, or a traditional IRA, or how to maximize my 401k, because I just thought it was just too complicated. And then like maybe when I become an adult, I will understand it. But that will never happen until I own that responsibility. And no one's ever going to take care of myself except for me. So I told myself that I would never not engage with something if it's because of fear. Like if I'm afraid, I just don't understand the complexity of, I don't know, cryptocurrency or the stock market or how index funds work, then that's not a good reason for me to walk away from it. I think that I want to challenge myself to walk away if I know the value and I know that it's not worth my time. Then that's a good reason. So when that did happen, I also reached out to a lot of like my friends who are very financially literate, and I like told them my context, and I kind of asked them to be my ally, to support and like educate me on this topic. And I asked them that I asked them if they can break it down for me. That would be really, really great. And then they do, and they're willing to share. Like people are willing to share if you're willing to ask and you're willing to show that you need help. Yeah. And then that, as well as r/personal finance on Reddit, is pretty good.
Mhm.
It's actually pretty good. Um, and and then I think when you start joining a company, there's always a financial team or retirement company that they partner with, and there's always office hours that you can utilize. And sometimes they'll have like one free session with a financial advisor. So like take that session and schedule it, understand what your financial goals should look like, and then try to map it throughout your career. Yeah. And also, I guess just if there's like ladies out there who are intimidated, it might be really worth talking to people or female mentors who have been in your position before to understand how they overcame it. But yeah, for me, it was really like brute force, or I was just angry. I was just so angry at myself for not doing it. I was like, why did I think that I was saving money my first year when it really wasn't? Yeah.
Wow, I think that's something that maybe we don't talk about that often over here. So I think
Yeah.
this would be really useful for a lot of people out there.
Yeah. Also there's like one thing that one of my mentors has really drilled in on me. One of my executive directors, he was like, Chloe, just do me a favor and read these two books. Number one is The Almanac of Naval Ravikant, and number two is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. So the first book, The Almanac of Naval Ravikant, this guy is like this, I think he is Indian American, and he grew up pretty poor, and his whole like thesis is how to get rich without getting lucky. And his whole thing is like, a salary or anything that's paid for your time won't ever build you wealth. That's like, that will build maybe lifestyle, that'll buy you the car that you may want. But how you build wealth is building equity and ownership and having things scale over time while you're sleeping. And so if you're ever trading your time for money, you're not going to be able to scale out. And in this day and age, in this economy, to like be mentally, emotionally prepared for a marriage or for your paying for your wedding or paying for children, it's like absurdly expensive that people don't do it because it's, how the heck are they going to afford it unless their parents give them money? And so that's kind of always part of this like rat race in your 20s, to be like, wow, I can't live life things because I can't afford to do so. But if you play the cards right and put it in the right places, you'll be able to gain that equity over time and have the freedom to move forward in your life in the way that you want. So that's number one. Number two is Never Split the Difference. And this is a book by Chris Voss, who is an ex FBI detective who specializes in hostage cases. So whenever someone's like kidnapped because there's like a bank heist or something, he goes to negotiate the ask down, and then I don't know, like he's just like a hostage negotiator. Yeah. So like a hostage taker would be like, this person's life is worth $100,000. Give me $100,000. And he'd be like, what about 2,000? And then so he has so many frameworks and tactics. So his story is he like took a Harvard business school class to see if his detective skills were applicable in the business world. And he basically crushed everyone at Harvard. And so he made his own class and made his own book about all the different techniques on how you can negotiate to make it a fair split for yourself. It's always like thinking about win-win situations. And it was just so incredible because when you negotiate for your offer, you're not really sure how much you should be valued, and you feel bad for making the other person like go down or up or something. But then this book helped me realize that it's not about them or me, it's about like both of us winning, and how can we make that deal really compelling for the both of us. And when you do have that great offer, it feels so much better to be living and working at a job that financially values you the way that you should be and competitively.
Wow. I mean, I thought about it, but I didn't realize that the negotiation skills can transfer like that. But yeah, I would definitely
Yeah.
check that book out when I have the time. I think we're probably coming to the end of the session today. Do you have any last? Oh wait, we got one question. Sorry about that. Somebody asked if there's any advice for teenagers who would like to start investing. I'm 17 years old and interested. And interested.
Um, I don't know if, wait, I don't know if there's like a minimum age for investments on certain accounts. And I have no idea. I think you'd got to check with like your country's laws. I would imagine that you would use your parents' accounts at that age bracket, but I'm totally unsure. Um, Man, that's a tough question. I think that reading up on how the stock market works and how people invest, what are different investment strategies, is important. Building your own like philosophy of how to invest is important because everyone's going to say, "Oh, invest in this stock, invest in this," and there's always like this fear of missing out, this fear of buying the dip or selling at the high. Like nobody actually knows. but it's all about your own money. Like, I think a piece of advice that I've been given again and again is only invest in the amount that you're okay losing, because it's basically gambling. Like, unless you're investing in index funds and you're just like dropping it in and never looking at it again until maybe retirement, like that's fine. A lot of people have they have a certain percentage and that will come out of their paycheck every month to contribute to investing in index funds. Like, this is not financial advice, by the way, so this is just like what I've seen people do. But everyone's risk tolerance is very different. Like, a lot of my guys who are really into it, they just like drop 20K on something and it will disappear. They will completely lose 20K in the market in one day, and they have to be okay with it. And the next day they make 50K back. That's like great for them, but they have to be okay with losing the 20 in the first place. I have really low risk tolerance, so I only put like a little bit of money in certain stocks, and I watch them rise up and down. I watch the news, or I read through my news feed to see what news impacts stocks. And and I want to increase my risk tolerance, but that requires me to have more cash at hand. So I think it depends on like where you are in your journey. Only putting amount that you're willing to lose, and then doing your due diligence to know that there are people out there with extremely different financial backgrounds, and they will take actions and they will behave in a different way than you might. And then just honestly, just figuring out what you're okay with. Like, again, everyone who says they know what they're doing in the stock market doesn't. Like, no one really knows. So just making sure you are okay with your decisions, that is what's going to save you from feeling horrible if things don't go right, which happens a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe just to add on a little bit, I know that I think you must be, if I'm not wrong, it's 18. So I know at 17 you can't open an investing account. So if you do want to, you could maybe consult your parents on that.
Yeah, I think there are also apps for underage kids or students or just minors in general to play with like pretend stock. And so just to get like younger people to understand how like that works. And then there's like pretend budgeting and all these cool parenting apps that all the teenagers can like hop onto. But I think since there's this person, whoever asked, is so close to 18, they might as well just like wait it out until then, and then just like watch the stock market, watch people who talk about it, read books that people who are big investors, like what are their philosophies, and then you just have to pick what's right for you. Yeah.
Hopefully that answered your question. I think if nothing else, maybe you just want to plug in your YouTube channel, your Twitch channel, socials and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you for having me, for sure, Tim. Like, it's been a pleasure being able to chat with you. And if people have further questions that have like popped up later on in the day or the weekend or the week, definitely feel free to reach out. You can email me at colorsofchloe@gmail.com. I do have a YouTube channel, and just called Colors of Chloe, where I talk about career things and lifestyle things in my career in tech. And then I host co-working sessions on Twitch during the daytime. So I mean, that's just twitch.tv/colors of Chloe. And if people want to have deeper questions, you can always talk in like my Discord, which you can find on YouTube, or you can DM me directly on Instagram. I'm pretty responsive there. I have like a lot of one-to-ones where people ask pretty personal questions, and then we try to like tackle it together. So yeah, I'm just really happy that everyone's here today. It's going to be a great weekend of doing this cool hackathon. I hope that everyone is able to have enough sleep so you can come up and present. And okay, I guess that doesn't happen over there too. But I think this is an awesome project. I hope it gets people far. I hope that you guys don't let resources bind you, and you can be as creative as you possibly want to be. Yeah. Thank you so much for having me, Tim, and everyone.
Thanks for taking the time to come over and speak today. We love to have you. I think it was wonderful having a chat with you today. Feel free to join any of the other sessions on Discord if any of them interest you as well. If not, I'm be ending the session. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.